Welcome to the questions and answers for 9,000 subscribers. Wow, we're getting really close to 10k. I'll be a real YouTuber very soon. So I asked on Instagram, ask me some questions, can be anything, and we will answer them. Have you ever been in Italy? Yes, I have, for a Cardfight Vanguard tournament. Which Yu-Gi-Oh movie do you prefer, Pyramid of Light or Dark Side of the Dimensions? I think Pyramid of Light because I grew up with it, but Dark Side of Dimension has had some pretty cool things as well going for it. Next up, gym, squat, bench, and deadlift maxes. Squat, I honestly almost never do leg day. The last time was like 4 years ago, and I think I did 110 kilos back then. But again, I just never did legs. So it could be higher if I tried, but I just don't do it. I think my leg press was 240. For bench, my max is 115 kilos, and for deadlift, it's 150 or something like that. Thoughts on the UBP1 Exodia set? Is it undervalued or is there too much competition from the LOB Exodia set? I think it's interesting. A lot of people ask me about it. My big problem is that whenever people ask me about UBP1, it's always about, do you think it'll go up? And not, I actually want to collect this. Which is, that's the one concern. How many people are going for this set because they truly want it in their collection? And how many are buying it because they think, I can't afford LOB and I still want an Exodia set? And I still want to speculate that it'll go up. Like, ooh, that freaks me out a little bit. It's probably the best alternative to LOB, but LOB is the best alternative to LOB. I would just go for a lower grade LOB before going for a UBP1. But that might just be me. Your favorite shoulder exercises and brand of your leather jacket. Favorite shoulder exercise, man, I really like shrugging, because my traps are quite good, so I can do it like real heavy. But probably the most useful one is just the military press. My brand of leather jacket, I don't know, is it ASOS or something like that? It's from the ASOS store. What are your top 10 favorite cards of all time? I don't have a top 10. I think my favorites would have to be Blue Eyes White Dragon, Crush Card Virus, Cyber End Dragon, Cyber Dragon, Blue Eyes Toon, Dark Magician Girl. And then it becomes really hard because a lot of cards on the lower tiers. Jinzo is a big one for me, but a lot of cards on like the tiers start fighting with each other. So I'm not really sure. Chimera Takeover Dragon is also a really cool one. Relinquished, I also really like. Yeah, I don't know if that's 10. What's your take on the future value of retro format max rarity cards, especially Goat format and its two gems, Serpent and Jar? It's interesting. I do think Yu-Gi-Oh needs those retro formats to... I already made a video about this in the past, how I think Goat format will be the very easy poker-like experience where you just know everything stays the same. I can sit down with some friends and play and I don't need to keep up with the crazy meta changes and so forth. If you're just someone with a job who still wants to play Yu-Gi-Oh, I feel like GOAT is great. It's kind of like Commander to me in Magic. Everyone knows, we don't have to play at the highest level and try to be Omega Brain. We're just gonna have a good time and chill and laugh. I think it's interesting for sure to max those out, but I don't know if that's, something good to spec on, because a lot of the value from that format is the fact that you can build such deck for a couple dollars. And yeah, you can bling it out, but are you gonna really spend insane amounts for blinging it out? Maybe? Do you think YCS Prize Cards will slowly keep rising like Shonen Jumps did? Yes and no. I don't think YCS Prize Cards are comparable to the Shonen Jump ones, because the Shonen Jump ones have a lot of rich history that the YCS ones don't have, except for a few. Now, quite some of the YCS ones are actually much more rare than the Shonen Jump ones, so that is playing its part. But you really got to consider the history and significance of the card as well. Crush Card and Cyberstein are in an entirely different caliber than Dual Link Dragon Thing. Like you show Dual Link Dragon Thing to someone and they go, okay, ugly, who cares? You show someone the Crush card, they go, oh, I remember Kaiba doing this thing. Some of them do have some very strong points, like Minerva is a loved card, part of the Lightstorm archetype, so people who grew up on playing Lightstorms back in the day and so forth. That is something interesting. Minerva is also a waifu, which helps. The new Chaos Emperor Pendulum thing is also interesting because it's clearly trying to be Chaos Emperor Dragon, so people who remember Chaos Emperor Dragon but now want, a fancy rare version of it, they might gravitate towards the price card like that. So it's very specific card dependent to me. In the same way, I don't actually think Doom Caliber Knight from Shonen Jump is all that big of a deal compared to Crush Card and even Cyberstein, even though Cyberstein isn't as rare as a Doom Cal. It's all about that history and story to me and the significance of the card in the game as a whole. And that's really important in my opinion. Are you familiar with Dave Ramsey? If so, what are your thoughts on his personal finance philosophy? So yes, I do know Dave Ramsey. I don't agree with everything he says, but the concepts that he touches upon are very useful for a large majority of people. They are not optimized, in my opinion. They are not min-maxed. They are not necessarily the best way to go about doing something, but I will say that 99% of people who currently have a financial plan, their financial plan probably sucks in comparison to Dave Ramsey's. They would learn a lot and probably get a better financial situation by listening to him. I think one important one is that a lot of his current thoughts are based on his fear of using leverage. And while that's definitely true, and again, a lot of people could probably learn a lot from that, leverage is still a very important part of building wealth for a lot of people. Again, you can't build real estate empires without some form of leverage at some point. Debt is a wealth creation or wealth destruction tool. And so by shying so many people away from it, very often, it depends. It's very harsh. But again, the way he structures his financial talks is basically protecting people from themselves. And I think most people can use that. But in my opinion, it's not optimal. Once again, though, I'm just a 24-year-old guy and he's old and experienced. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's right. Maybe everyone is going to be wrong eventually and he'll be the rightest person ever. I don't know. I'll gladly keep learning, I'll keep watching him, but I don't have to agree with everything he says. How much of a premium do EU PSA 10 ultis in the GX era command, if any, over their NA counterpart? This is very personal, I feel. I do feel that there should be a premium on EU cards, and there are, in the sense that if I see someone looking for an ulti, usually they're looking for EU. The relief, the 3D look, is just so much cooler on these GX ultis from Europe rather than America. So if I had to give an offer right now on someone who has a PSA 10 Cyber End, my offer on the European one would be 25% higher than on the American one. Now that doesn't mean that this is consistent with the rest of the market. Not everyone cares about that, but a lot of people do. And when I talk to other collectors, usually they are looking for the EU ones. Because again, the American ones, they're cool, but they're way more flat than the EU ones. What made you believe in starting your own software company? How did you identify a value add for customers? I'm not really a big guy who likes to get into, you know, what the entrepreneurial book tries to sell you. Like, you gotta consider the value add and so forth. The company was started because I thought, hey, this product I need for my shit, and no one else is making a good one. Guess I'll make it. So the value add was, I needed the damn product and it didn't exist, at least in the form that I needed it. So we made it. I believed in it because I missed the fucking product, and that's pretty important. It's very easy to get caught up in all of these fancy terms and fancy words that you use in a pitch deck to get VC funding. But most people should just consider, hey, do I actually need this? Do other people need this? What upcoming sets should I invest in, and what cards to look out for, vintage as well as new ones? So I never tell people what to invest in, especially new, because, you know, do you need the cards? Should you invest in this? I don't know. Do you need every card in here? No. Buy the singles. And even then, if you're buying the singles, it's not for fucking appreciation on modern products, usually. Sometimes it works. You could buy this. Might be more in 2 years. Do I think it'll be more in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? I don't know about that. I would much rather bet on the stock market being higher than on this being higher. And also, I don't want my channel to become a hand-holding channel. I'm not a huge fan of that. This whole high beast stuff that we see a lot of in Pokemon, where people are like, oh, invest in Champion's Path right now. Like, not my style. I hope I can give you solid info on this channel, that you can learn, that you can develop yourself in various ways, and maybe get other people's opinions as well, and that way actually make proper, justified decisions based on your own thinking rather than buy this. Last time you got yourself a haircut, I don't know, 4 years ago or something, this ponytail just, you know, keeps growing and growing. And as long as it's in a ponytail and stuff, who cares, right? No one notices the difference between, you know, it becoming this much longer and this much longer and this much longer. One day though, I should really do something about it. 5 cards that you want to own in your collection. Okay, so I've been plenty clear about this before. I want a PSA 10 Cyber End Dragon. If you have one, hit me up. This is not a stonks move. This is just, we want one. A Jinzo. Again, PSA 10 first edition and so forth. Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, again, PSA 10 first edition and so forth. We're at 3 right now, right? A Cyber Dragon, PSA 10 first edition. Again, ultimate rare for the 2 Cyber Boys. The 5th would be a PSA 10 Mystical Elf, I think. I have a BGS 9.5, which is cool, but PSA 10 would be nicer. What are your current goals in regards to YouTube/content creation? That's a fun one. So for this particular channel, I don't know, 100k subs? We're at fucking 9, but yeah, let's up the ante. Overall, I don't think 100 is possible, for the sheer fact that Yu-Gi-Oh! as a whole is large enough for 100k channels as we have, but not when you start niching down into finance and then not even hype beast finance. You know, I'm not telling people to invest in ghosts from the past, because that would do way better. You know, there's just more rational, settled down style and so forth. I don't know. I don't know what the cap is on that. I do think there is a low cap. I don't think it's 100k, but that would be cool. I would like such a plaque. Now I have other channels as well, but again, Vanguard, that also has a lower cap. Solemn Tones, which is my company's YouTube, but again, it's not really hype based. It's just to inform people about the products and so forth. So that also has a pretty low cap. I have a personal channel, Maxim Solemn, but again, I'm not really thinking of the branding on that one. I'm just going like, hey, here's a talk of me of 40 minutes. Hope you don't get bored. Oh, here's a song I made. It has nothing to do with a talk. Oh, here's me in Japan. It has nothing to do with either of those. So that personal channel is just a dump, basically, where I just dump whatever I think is relevant to my life, and it'll be interesting, you know, in 30 years if I can show that to people and go like, oh, look what fucking idiot I was. So again, none of those are actually viable YouTube channels given what YouTube currently requires. So I don't have high goals specifically. I think this channel is the one with the highest odds of doing well because I'm at least structuring it well with consistent upload schedules, sometimes a bit of a baity thumbnail because that's just what's required, titling and so forth, at least sometimes jumping on this bullshit ass hype. So yeah, 100k, but I don't think it's happening. Recently, King Pokemon Gary made a statement on his YouTube about the rise of potentially new AI-based grading companies and made bearish comments on PSA and other grading companies if nothing else is done. Do you think current slabbed holders will cross their cards to a different AI grading company, assuming the AI grading process is 99.9% accurate? While I agree that AI grading is very fascinating and I do think that it will become a standard, I think there's a large conflict of interest. A lot of the value on PSA graded cards is coming from the authority of the holders as well. So it's not just that people trust the company, it's that people trust the collectors who have so much net worth in cards and then show off those PSA graded cards to everyone. And so the authority that those holders have might be higher than random AI company X out of Silicon Valley. You know, if Nat Turner shows off his millions in PSA cards, or Gary Vaynerchuk shows off his millions in PSA cards, and all these people, you know, keep collecting these PSA cards, I don't know if new AI grading company with sexy funding is gonna overthrow that. It's possible, it's certainly possible. Industries get disrupted all the time, but I don't feel it. The same way SM Pratt wasn't hot on the AI grading thing and he's aware that it will get implemented and so forth. Why would he? You know, he commands such a powerful voice in the Pokemon community that as long as he keeps his card slabbed and just tells everyone on E4 and on his channel like, PSA is king, baby, then people will listen. And as long as he then doesn't cross, I just don't think this new company can overthrow them in any way. Once again, though, it's possible. It's very possible shit gets disrupted. I just think that it's very more likely that PSA buys that new company than that PSA gets destroyed by that new company. Do you have an end game in mind when it comes to collecting graded slabs? I don't really have an end game. I know a lot of people have like fancy registries where they're like, oh, I want full LOB, or I want full this, or I want full that. I never had this affinity with trying to get full sets. I'm more so a guy who goes like, oh, I remember this one common. I want that common. Oh, I remember this card. I want that one card. And so it's more like a pick and choose thing. And sometimes I'll remember a new memory. Like for example, when I got first back into Yu-Gi-Oh, I wasn't actively looking for a slot machine per se, but then 2 weeks ago or so, I suddenly remembered like, hey, wait, I remember drawing slot machine. I want that graded and so forth. So it's a much more organic process. I don't really have a big end game in mind because the end game is constantly morphing and changing. Overall though, I feel like I've already hit my end game because the cards that I really, really wanted, I just have. Again, I already listed my top 5 of what I'm still looking for. Like the Cyber End I really want, Blue Eyes Toon I still want, Jinzo I still want, but then everything else is like, oh, it'd be cool to have that. And that can completely, constantly evolve. It doesn't need to really be set in stone. I would much rather have defined business goals than to turn a hobby, let's say, into a super defined thing. I'm just having fun with it mostly, and then it happens to make money, which is, you know, a cool bonus. What's your opinion on graded Yu-Gi-Oh packs? I think they look cool. I think they're more collectible than non-graded packs, but I don't personally feel something about them in any shape or form. You know, it'd be fun, I guess, to have like every single pack that I care about, you know, an LOB, an MRD, an MRL, PSV, a couple Cybernetic Revolutions. That'd be fun, but it's not something I'm super actively going after or anything like that. Would you ever sell Cyber End or SDK Blue Eyes to fund honeymoon/engagement ring? No. I think honeymoons and engagement rings are a big old scam. I mean, I don't think so. It's fucking fact. You can look up the history of how all these things were set up and the funding. Same with marriage. All of these big parties that have social constructs built around them to make you spend insane amounts of money. You're basically forced into them from a social stigma standpoint, but selling actual assets for I'm socially bullied into doing this, nah, that ain't happening. Do you have a plan to sell your very own not stonk solemn NFT? No. I tried making an NFT, you know, I've already learned how to use the platforms because I want to be super on the ground floor, if that makes sense. I want to be in the trenches. I want to be aware of stuff that's going on. I want to be able in 5 or 10 or 15 years when everyone knows everything about NFTs and everyone's going, oh, blah, blah, blah. I want to be able to go, hey, I made an NFT back then. Fuck you. I find that interesting. But I'm not trying to make hella stonks of a solemn NFT and trying to get money out of my audience in that way or anything like that. A card that everyone loves but you just don't like/hate. I mean, LOB Blue Eyes, I've been very clear about. I just don't give a damn about that card. I would want one to have one. And I don't think the broken neck art is disgusting or anything. You know, it's probably in my top 5 Blue Eyes arts or even top 3 or something. It's just that I feel the amount of love it gets isn't genuine compared to its actual organic demand. So it's not that I hate the card, it's just that I don't think it deserves all the love it gets because people didn't give a shit about the card before all of the appreciation and so forth. Similar shit for Corrected Art Dark Paladin, though that one actually had quite a bit more love at first. I just once again feel like it's overrated given its current price and reputation and so forth. But again, it will probably keep on doing well because a lot of this stuff is built on self-fulfilling prophecies. Next up, how much do you think good stories play a role for collectors? Stuff like the Mattel Cyber Dragon, the Corrected Art Dark Paladin, and so forth. Funny that you ask that because we just spoke about it. Yeah, good stories are crucial. It's not just about, oh, this card is the rarest, like whatever. I have cards that are infinitely more rare from Cardfight Vanguard than all of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards we constantly talk about on this channel. And those cards are 100, maybe 200 max, while all of these cards are 5 figures. And I'm not saying that this fucking $100 Vanguard card is supposed to be 5 figures. I am saying that rarity isn't everything. It is crucial for a collectible to have value, but if there is no demand, rarity doesn't do shit. It's also why I'm not going after World's Prize Cards for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Yu-Gi-Oh! World's Prize Cards usually have nothing to do with anything that people actually care about in the hobby. The E-Hero one, the Blue Eyes, and the Dark Magician might be a bit different because those do have ties to things that people really love. But you know, if you show a World's Prize card to someone, they go, never seen it before, whatever. You know, and then you have to explain, oh, it's a World's Prize card, there's only 5, blah, 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 and that's cool. That adds history, but once again, the only reason that that person cares is because you're now telling him the whole story. And so the story is crucial. We already spoke about it before once again with the Shonen Jump ones. A Crush card and a Cyberstein just has an actual story to it, and that matters for price. People buy things because of stories, not just in cards, also just in the world. Marketing is storytelling. Stories are everything in a collectible. That's why people will always gravitate towards the first as well, because it's the first. It's part of that history. You can talk about it. A collectible is a talking point. You meet someone and they go, oh wow, you've got this thing. Oh yeah, this thing, it's actually because of this and that. Same with watches, by the way. It's also why Apple watches and so forth are complete junk in the sense of a collectible. They're all the same. There's nothing special. You can't say, oh, this mechanic did this special thing and blah, blah, blah. It just isn't there. You need the stories for a collectible to truly be impressive in the long term. So yeah, like you said, the Mattel Cyber Dragon. Sure, it has some controversial shit going on, and so that needs to be worked out. But if that is worked out, that card has a story. The Dark Paladin, again, and I'm not a huge fan of the card, but it has a story. Next up, was Blue Eyes SDK Unlimited ever reprinted? So from what people tell me, there were reprints, but they were way back in the day. So it wasn't like 2017 that they were still printing them. It might have been like in 2004 or something, but I don't have confirmation of that in any way. However, I can say these cards, even if they weren't reprinted in the modern way, were printed to shit. Like, if you went to a store in 2004, you could buy SDK and SDY all the time. SDP and SDJ, same thing. those were always available in Unlim. So even if you don't have modern Walmart reprints of them, you still need to be somewhat careful because it's very possible that there's millions upon millions of this stuff out there. Still beautiful card though. I love Blue Eyes. If I was looking for a budget alternative right now, I had to buy a Blue Eyes to scratch that nostalgia collector itch without breaking the bank, I would definitely go for an Unlim SDK Blue Eyes. It's still a gorgeous card, but from a invest perspective, I wouldn't touch it personally. Do you think today's meta secrets and OTS/Astral Supers will be pricey like old school cards? No, not at all. They might go up or they might go down, I don't care about that, but like old school cards, hell no. Because they're not the originals. It is always about the originals. It's always about that history. And if you say, oh, but one day these will be history. Yes, but you know what will be more history? The actual history. The actual first. Whenever people try to tell me like, oh, but a modern will be vintage one day. Yeah, but don't you think vintage will be, I don't know, more vintage? And again, I'm not even convinced that modern will be vintage because where is all the kids collecting the cards right now? Where is little Jimmy, 8 years old, playing on the playground with Ghosts from the Past? They exist, but they don't exist in the same way that they did in 2002. And even in Pokemon, I don't think it will work the same way because the amount of supply being created currently and being kept in great condition because of all this speculative movement is so much bigger than in 99 that you just can't compare it. And so no, I wouldn't spec on it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong and I would love to see it because I still have some of those cards and I will probably keep them in binders. But you know who else does that? Literally everyone. What is the top 5 of the most underrated card and what is the top 5 of the most overrated card? If I could objectively say what's the most underrated, I would buy it all up and not tell a soul. Top 5 most overrated? I don't know. Again, I think LOB is overrated. LOB Blue Eyes at 80k compared to everything else. That doesn't mean that I'm saying, oh, it needs to crash down all the way, but more so that other cards still have more growth in them to catch up to that. So I don't think you will necessarily see sales well beyond that 80 mark that everyone is trying to hype in the near future. And if we do, then I think other cards will have grown better, which we're kind of already seeing. What is the lowest grade you would consider investing in for higher end vintage cards, excluding prize cards? Do you think PSA 8s are too low in the long run? This is a very tough question because I'm honestly not sure. And I don't think anyone is sure. It takes time to flesh out pop reports. And so we just had the craziest Yu-Gi-Oh grading craze that we've ever seen. Now, from numbers so far, it seems like LOB and SDK and some of these highest end cards, their pops really aren't changing much. And that should tell us that those are relatively safe. However, the PSA 8 and 7 and so forth can get fleshed out quite a fair bit because all of those bulk and economy submissions from 2020 and so forth, those are still being processed right now. And so the highest of the high end usually were sent in express and so forth. So they're already gone through the system. We already know that people who subbed express in 2020, those cards are out. Mostly. But all the people who are like, whoa, all the prices are going up. I'm gonna start sending in my medium play, my light play, even just my near mint cards because even now it's worth to grade them, but I'm not gonna pay express because it's not that worth either. All of those are still stuck. And so while right now I wanna say everything 8 and above feels fine to me, it's perfectly possible that some of these can still get crushed in the short term. And even 10s actually, it just depends on how much the demand wanes once everything opens up and so forth. So I'd still be relatively careful. But the lower down the grades you go, the riskier it gets because we just don't know how much was subbed. Personally, I'm very convinced that I have to stay far away from 7 and under. But until we see all of those, value and economy subs from 2020 all flushed through the system, so we have a very, very solid view on this is the pop report and we're probably not going to see a lot of numbers added to this, that's when we can actually start judging, okay, where are 8s headed? Where are 9s headed? Where are even 10s headed? But I'm personally not buying anything under 8. Except for, of course, if you have absolute rarity on the card, like on a prize card, then I'll still gladly do it. Regardless of what the market is doing, card goes from 400 to 700 to 1000 in X months. How do you go about setting a limit for what you are willing to pay for a card? I don't really know. I don't have an objective measure for this because I think that every card is different and demand for every card is different and the story for every card is different. And so while in absolute numbers, certain cards might be equally rare and maybe they are equally special and maybe they're currently equal price and so forth, it's very possible that I see, the historic significance of this one card is way higher than this other one, and so therefore this one is super undervalued, whereas this one is actually overvalued. So there's no specific way to go about it. I think it's also very personal because it depends on what's the value of your time. Is it worth it to you to head to the post office and ship out a card if the profit you're making on that card is $20? Or if you just did your job, are you already making $200 an hour or something like that? Is it then worth to go to the post office for that $20? Maybe it isn't, or maybe it is. So that's a super personal thing. Additionally, how do you assess for yourself if you think a card is over or undervalued based on what it's currently selling at? Once again, you're looking at fundamentals. SM Pratt has the whole older, rarer, minter, better thing, which I think is a very, very good idea. Essentially, is your card old? Is it actually rare? Is it actually in good condition? Those three things are important fundamentals. But then there's other things, because you can have an old card that's actually rare and still mint, but no one wants, and then how good is it really, right? So the extra dimension of demand and historical significance do also matter. And so it's impossible to just say, oh, here's my one law of how much should a card be, because it just varies so damn much. What's your top 5 favorite cards? I don't have a top 5. Again, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Crush Card Virus, and then once again, they gotta start fighting. I have like 30 cards in my head right now that I all love above all others. Again, Cyber End I love a lot. Chimera Tech I love a lot. Relinquished. We've already gone through those. So it's very hard. They're all fighting somewhat. But SDK and Crush Card and Cyber End, those are just destroying everything else. For me personally, but that's very personal, you know. Most people are like, Crush Card, it's just a trap card, fuck off. Next, why is Vintage Dark Magician not getting any market attention? Have you been paying attention? Vintage Dark Magician has gone up way. Obviously, it's not a Blue Eyes, so maybe it's not as hot to talk about. You can't talk about, oh, this card is now 20,000, 30,000, blah, blah, blah. But Vintage Dark Magician has gone up plenty. And it is a pretty important topic. You always need to look at what was its relative growth. Now, on lower end items, it doesn't matter. Again, if a card goes from $1 to $3, sure, it tripled in value, but are you going to waste your time to sell that and put in all the work to get that sold? Fuck no. But if you are already talking about a card that went from 1,000 to 3,000, or you're talking about a card that goes from 500 to 1,500, you got market attention. Both of those cards rose just the same amount, and you could have bought both of those cards, and once they have that same amount of growth, have seen the same amount of growth. Once again though, how much time you need to spend to actually ship that if it's multiple cards and so forth, but the relative number is very important. You can't lose sight of that. If you bought a bunch of Dark Magicians at 500 while Blue Eyes was 1,000, and then those went up the same percentage, you're still happy. It doesn't matter that Dark Magician didn't rise as high. Not as many people just care about Dark Magician as much as Blue Eyes. If you could have one card as a BGS 10 black label, which card would it be and why? Personally, black labels are just marketing schemes. They're random. The difference between a quad 9.5 and a black label is basically not there. It's just a dice roll to entice people to submit to BGS and get some fancy extra RNG luck right there. Did the grader get great head the night before? That might change if your 9.5 is actually a BGS 10 black label. So I don't really put any value in it personally, but I guess if I had to choose, it would either be the Cyber End or the SDK Blue Eyes. Would you ever consider opening your own trading card store? So I had my own trading card store for Vanguard and a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! At one point it was called Claret Cards, and I fucking hated it. It was plenty profitable, it was okay, cool, money rolled in, but if you are wasting so much fucking time on, oh, unboxing all your cases, and then sure you can hire someone for that, but you unbox the cases and then you start writing the addresses, or even if you have to print out addresses and put all the cards in the stop loaders and put them in the envelope and close it and put the tracking up, and we start stacking all of our packages and we go to the post office and we get it shipped out. Oh, a package got lost. Oh no, a package got lost. Go fucking track it. A customer complains about this and so forth. And of course, pieces of this are required in every business. But overall, the margins you make on running a modern day card store and all the BS that you need to go through, oh god, no. I fucking hated it. It also takes away the love for the cards, I feel. Like, when you open a box of cards, it's exciting, right? Oh wow, I open my Ghost from the Past and I'm looking for that cool pull. Wow, we're having a good time. Okay, now do this 500 times. Trust me, after 20 boxes, you wanna die. Now, if you meant the physical card store, that's even worse, because not only do you have all the issues of relatively low margins and all of the BS you have to do with physical items and so forth like this, but then you also have the worst business model on the planet on top of that. So no, fuck no. I will never, ever, ever, ever reopen a card store in my life. If you are opening a card store, it really has to be because that's just what you love to do. And that requires a very specific person. And I have realized after a year of running that store, it isn't me. Some people do love it, and that's great. Please keep doing it. Please keep enjoying it. You know, if that's your jam and you make money that way, go ahead, great. I'm pretty sure you're also at one point hiring people to take care of opening shit and so forth, because God, that sucks. But again, that's super personal. It just really, really didn't work out for me. Even though it was all profitable, and like, even that is a blessing, because most of these card stores just aren't fucking profitable. That's also why most of these go out of business very, very quickly. Next up, what was your best trade as a kid? We know the worst one was the Serpent Night Dragon. So that's funny. You remember that my worst trade was the Serpent Night Dragon, at least emotionally, maybe not financially. My best trade was actually a fucking ripoff. And so this doesn't feel great, you know, because if I did that right now, I would be seen as a scumbag. But can you really blame a 9-year-old? Are you gonna blame a 9-year-old for a scummy trade? Well, we'll see. Essentially, I didn't have the money for a proper Dark Arm Dragon deck, obviously. Like, which young kid could afford a Dark Arm deck? I think the full value of a Dark Arm deck was like $1,000 or something like that, maybe more. Crazy times, that deck was literally tier 0. And so I wanted that. It was so cool. My favorite player at our locals also played it. So I was like, wow, I want such a deck as well. It's so cool. All the cool kids had the Dark Arm deck. And so for my birthday, I pulled, you know, you get maybe some money from your grandparents, maybe a little from your parents and so forth. I pulled all of that to try and get the necessary pieces. And so from all of that birthday money, I was able to buy 2 Destiny Hero Militias and I think 1 or 2 Destiny Draw. So obviously that's already scuffed. You needed 3/3, duh, but I couldn't afford that. So that was the start. And then, obviously, in a Dark Arm deck, you need fucking Dark Arm Dragon. That card was like 100 apiece, even back then. Yeah, try and add inflation and so forth, absolutely wild. So how was I supposed to get a Dark Arm Dragon? I would never have a Dark Arm Dragon. Until one day, my little brother comes running up to me, saying, "Oh, I met a kid and he has a Dark Arm Dragon." But it was like literally on the playground. I was like, what? There's a kid with a Dark Arm Dragon. This is my chance. And so I went to the kid. And so, you know, it's just kids playing. And I said, hey, I want that Dark Arm Dragon. And the kid didn't really know what he had. So I offered him a random trap card. Just a stupid fucking, like literally, probably a $2 trap card. Or €2 in my case. And I offered it for trade for his Dark Arm Dragon. And he agreed. So that is how little Maxime, I don't know how old I was I 9, 10, 11, 12? I don't know. I was very young at least. That's how I got my singular Dark Arm Dragon. Literally just a random trap card. Absolute jank. The card, however, was French and damaged, but it was still legal. So I was still happy with it. I still had my singular Dark Arm Dragon. And yeah, I started tearing up regionals with that thing because I only had one. So that was my best trade. I mean, financially speaking at least. Obviously, from a moral perspective, it wasn't my best, but it's a story and kids will be kids, you know. How do you ensure any PSA cards you're buying on eBay or other sites are legit PSAs and not fakes? So Yu-Gi-Oh! PSA cards for the longest time weren't being faked. Recently, I started seeing some fakes that were obviously shit fakes. I also covered the Illustrator fake one on this channel before. If you haven't checked that out, check out Blending in Illustrator. That video was pretty funny. So those looked like shit and you could still see the difference. Then we started seeing newer ones though and I was like, oof, that's a little yikes. If that keeps on happening and people, you know, make proper fakes, that might hurt. So for now, I'm not really that afraid yet, but it's very possible that down the line, as fakes get better and better and better, that you will basically start relying on going through trusted sources. And that's gonna suck. If we get to such a point, ew. For now though, you're mostly you're mostly safe. Do you know how many copies of the Summoned Skull samples are held by European collectors, since it was distributed in North America? That should make it even harder to find here. God, I don't know. There's no way to know. That's the important thing about all these cards. Everyone makes these big assumptions about, oh, there's only so many of this in the world, but like, how do you know? Especially because these are on the front just regular cards, and they're basically just commons. So, you know, if someone has 1 or 2 or 3 of these in their bulk, do they even know they have them? How many people are checking all the backs? And so I don't know. If we look at how many are for sale, they're rare as shit. If we look at the pop report, they're rare as shit. If I look at the amount of people that don't have them because I was looking for more, they're rare as shit. And we also know that, you know, if these cards were being distributed before the game was even out, there weren't that many. They didn't really know how many successes there would be, and it's not like every single store on the planet got these. You know, some local game stores basically got them, and then some retailers and so forth. So they're definitely rare, but how many? No one can say. We just can be very, very sure that it's less than the print runs of regular booster box cards. Final question, are you in a relationship, and if so, for how long? Yes, I have been in a relationship. Well, the coming September, I will have been in a relationship for 6 years now. So that's a long ass time for someone my age. Hope you found it interesting. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao.